we're going to go from 150 to 200. That's great to say it, but unless you've got a strategy that helps you incrementally get to the other 50 million with everybody on board, because the hardest thing in the world in business is getting everybody on the same bus with only one steering wheel.
Welcome to the Great Talent, Great Business Podcast, your go-to resource for building exceptional teams and thriving businesses. Each episode delivers actionable insights on harnessing offshore talent, integrating innovative technology, cultivating a vibrant company culture, and attracting and retaining top performers. Subscribe now to never miss an episode. For more resources, visit greattalentpodcast.com, where you can download this episode's free worksheet designed to help you apply today's insight to your business. And now, here's your host, Rob Levin.
Today, I'm here with Dan Donnelly, a seasoned energy, real estate, and startup investor with over 40 years experience building companies in the New York City service industry. He was a founder of Donnelly Mechanical, one of New York City's leading commercial HVAC firms, which he exited quite successfully. In fact, it was the talk of the town for a little while up here in New York. Dan, so good to see you and so glad to have you on the show.
Thank you, Rob. It's always good to see you. I miss our days back in the Benjamin Steakhouse having multiple breakfasts.
There were several because, I always wanted to keep the conversation going. Dan, reflecting back on Donnelly Mechanical, what were some of the top drivers that you think led to the success you had with that company?
Well, I would say several things, but they all involve people. So I built my business very differently than my peers. I made them partners, sweat equity partners. They did not have to put money into the business. Their time and tenure, sweat, blood, and tears were all part of it. And so what I would do is they earned their percentages. And in them earning their percentages, I was able to create KPIs and workflow around them being responsible for their success and the company's success. So each one of those 5 partners had a responsibility and a role within the company, and they would keep each other accountable. I didn't really have to get involved in any part of it. And it was really, really good. So I would say that would be number one, was I had ownership, real ownership, because they had ownership, and I treated them like owners. And when we sold the business, they got duly rewarded. I would say the second thing that we did, also people related, was after my divorce and my Come to Jesus meeting with my Vistage group, and they basically told me that I should fire myself and hire the appropriate level of talent. That was a big slap in the face at the time, but it was the perfect solution to what would come next. So I had built with my partners a $65 million business, but to get to the next level, I had to hire 12 people while paying off my divorce and in a questionable economy, and everything hit. The economy took off, my divorce ended, I was able to pay her off quickly. And I brought in 12 new people with different skills than myself and my partner, things that I never really had before. I never really had an IT director. I never really had an HR director. And then we brought in different people to do different things like social media and high-level sales and high-level estimating. So bringing in those 12 pieces in 2015-16 enabled me to get to my trajectory in 2018, which was around my 60th birthday. I want to sell Donnelly Mechanical to a strategic partner. I did not want to sell to private equity. Too many of my friends and your friends had been burned so badly with the clawbacks and deliverables down the road. So I wanted to be with a strategic partner that I could literally walk away the day we did the transaction, leave them with my partners and the core company. And I would say that was a big guy. The other thing that I would say was a big driver in our success was, even though we were air conditioning contractors, we sold pain management. That's what we did. And once everybody understood what we were really selling, we weren't really selling cooling, and we really weren't selling heating, and we really weren't selling construction and energy and everything else. We were solving for problems. Some of my competitors didn't work on the weekends. We love working on the weekends, so we'd get those calls. and we would develop contracts. So we were in the pain management business all throughout our entire 30 years. It took me 20 years to figure that out. But once we knew that we were the ones that liked pain, so we would create models and businesses and strategies and processes around the things that my competitors would run away from. So we did things that were uncomfortable, and the people that were with me understood that, wow, what are we doing here? Why would we go in and finish somebody else's bad job? And the answer was because we'd make a lot of money and get that big maintenance contract. And that was painful. So I think a big part of it was because we had alignment, the employees understood that if we said, hey, listen, we got to march here, they march there. And that was a big part. So a big challenge for my company was that we were 2/3 to 3/4 blue collar, remote. These guys were in the field all day long and managing them. And again, we had great people. I am telling you, the biggest gift I got out of Vistage, which is what really drove Donnelly Mechanical, is identifying the A players and identifying who's not an A player and all these sacred cows. And prior to me doing this, I would hold on to people for the wrong reasons. Once we got to the point where we were able to grow people, it was contagious and everybody got it. So if somebody didn't work out, it was okay. It's not going to work out. But we built a lot of A players. I would say to you, Donnelly Mechanical today still has most of their field force. The model is very different in New York City now because of the hybrid situation and the diminishing commercial real estate. But the biggest success of Donnelly, it doesn't make a difference how smart we are in the office, but if the remote workers in the field that are touching my clients aren't engaged in the mission message and what we're trying to deliver, absolutely no success would happen there. And then I would say to you, the other thing that was really, really good is we were very selective. Before playing hard to get was really a thing, we were very selective with our clients. And by being very selective, we put ourselves out of harm's way with people that didn't pay their bills, or people that were never going to pay their bills, or people that just didn't know how to build a project. So we were very, very lucky that because the way our businesses were structured, we had 5 different models. So if I didn't like what I saw in that, I could say, okay, listen, I really don't need that. Let's move away. Let's have somebody else have all the fun of dealing with that impossible client. So I would say to you, those were the big drivers in what got us ready, what continued us to grow, and then what eventually sold us. What sold Donnelly Mechanical, which was very interesting, is I had created, and you were part of this, an energy group. I had thought something was going to happen in 2006, 2007, and I thought it was going to be the economy. So in keeping with staying forward, because I was always 5 years ahead, I created an energy group so that, God forbid, the commercial service or commercial construction market died, I had a fallback. So we created Donnelly Sustainable Energy Systems, and at that time we were 65, 70 million, and Donnelly Energy did 5 million. But Donnelly Million gave me the ability during the financial crisis to go introduce myself to people that weren't even thinking about energy yet. Nobody was even talking about sustainability. Nobody was talking about, hey, I can optimize your building. So that is eventually what got Donnelly sold. That $5 million energy company sold a $200 million mechanical contracting because they liked that we had incorporated energy into one of our offerings.
It was all about the future. Yeah.
It was the future. And I would say to you, we were always 5 years ahead of all our competitors. And I could tell you that a big driver for us was watching what the other guys did. And my competitors were absolutely magnificent. I would watch what they do, study it, and then replicate it or do it even better. So we created different divisions within Donnelly, and then I would hire those people to do it. And then we managed those people, and it was a great, great run while it lasted. 30 years, but the last 5 were on a roller coaster.
It sounds like because a little bit with strategy, right, with the working in the energy business, but a lot of it, from what you're saying, I'm looking at my notes here, came down to people.
Yeah. So, Rob, Just take our breakfasts, for instance. I was never a salesperson. God, no. I'm the guy you bring into the room if you want to close a deal, but I'm not the guy that's a sales guy. I'm an idea guy. I'm a connector guy. So when I would have breakfasts, and you remember I would have 3 breakfasts every morning, what I really, really enjoyed was at that time, our company was really humming, and I had the opportunity to meet great people and extract great ideas. And some of the best ideas I got, some of the best ideas that I saw during that period came from those breakfasts with guys like you and Greg and Drew. And they would say, hey, listen, have you thought about doing this? And have you thought about doing that? And I look back at those days on the collaboration and the feedback. And what I love most, which is really, I think, a problem right now, is sitting uncomfortably in an idea, sitting uncomfortably in not knowing, sitting uncomfortably in, wow, I see this real big problem coming up. What do I do? As opposed to not talking about it and then
And
feeling the pain.
because you're in ICE, you're not getting those new ideas. Yeah.
Exactly. So listen, I'm Irish Catholic. I like pain, guilt, and suffering. Cut me up right now. I'll take as much pain, guilt, and suffering as you're going to give me, as long as on the back end it's
Right.
less. So I was
You
always
want
the
the pain up
guy
front,
that
or
I
yes,
want the pain up front.
yes, right. As opposed
I want the
to
pain up front. I'll take the
right.
pain up front while everybody else dodges it, figure out a solution, build a business around it. So I built 3 businesses around pure pain. And those businesses are still here today. And
So
it's
this
wild.
is, by the way, I've asked you one question so far, and you've basically given a crash course in successful entrepreneurship. That's for the viewers and the listeners out there. And I want to come back to a few things here. Actually, I want to just clarify 2 things. Vistage, which Dan referred to, is a CEO peer group. I'm actually back in a group, Dan, and Drew's in that group too. And Dan and I were in a group together for a little while, several years ago. And Dan also mentioned when we collaborated together, it was back when I had a media company and Dan wanted to do an event on sustainability in New York City. And we partnered together for that, which was a really cool event. As you said,
Very nice.
way before anybody was talking about it. Now, of course, it's like the first thing out of anybody's mouth in that line of work. I want to come back to something. There was something really subtle that you said back in the beginning of the conversation. And you said you basically, with a few of your partners, these were junior partners, you essentially gave them responsibilities, gave them a
Yes.
task. You said, look, you're responsible for this. You own it. So I want to just ask you a follow-up question on that. Were these people, because this was before I think you brought in some new talent,
Yes.
did you have to kind of upskill them, either with training by you or training by others? Did they come in already with all of these talents?
The greatest story of Donnelly Mechanical was I came into the business with 5 partners. Nobody had history working as an air conditioning contractor, mechanical contractor. One of my partners had been a technician, but they had never run a business, never operated a business, never estimated construction. And we grew over time. And the greatest thing about Donnelly Mechanical was we were always 5 years ahead of the next market. So for the first 5 years of our business, it was all service. So it was all hands on deck, and then I would carve up the different service responsibilities. When we got to the next level, it was starting a construction department. So I led the charge with that with one of the partners, and then the other 4 were service. And then we'd carve up the different responsibilities in service. Sales, we expect you to hit this much. Service, this is what we got to make, this is what we got to do. Construction, this is how we were going to do it. So we got really, really good at identifying the goals. What would take time was taking those goals, breaking them down into KPIs that we could actually measure monthly. And once we got to that point, we knew we had something special. We spent, in the last 2 years before I sold Donnelly Mechanical, I put our company through a roller coaster. We decided we were going to update our entire service and construction software. And this was easy for me to say, but hard for them to do. And it really took a pain on everybody. And there were a lot of upset people. But again, it was one of the things that we had to do because why? Pain is gain. And we knew that we needed to do it. We didn't want to do it, but we had to do it. So everybody knew what their role was when we did that. Everybody knew what their role was with respect to the year. And then once in a while, we'd have crossover. At that point, I was starting to buy businesses, and then I would try and dovetail those businesses into something related to Donnelly. And the other businesses were completely standalone. But the great thing for me was, I would say once we identified what each person's role was, and then their goal, their big goal, then it was easy just to break it down. And they could break it down and say to me, hey, listen, for us to do $4 million in service sales, we need this, we need to hire another salesperson, we're going to go into this market. And it was very, very easy at that point. It's really, really easy when you have a strategy, but you have to have the people that will sit in the room, and nobody wants to talk about strategy and process. Nobody wants it. But once it's done, and you get 80% alignment, because you're never going to get 100% alignment, but if you got 80% and people are marching in the same direction, then you just have to monitor it for a period of time. But we were very lucky. Donnelly, in the last couple of years before we sold, we were benefited with a great, great economy. We had the tailwinds behind us, and we had slipped into certain markets that my competitors had not slipped into. And so it was really, really easy for us to go out to a strategic and say, listen, this is what we've created. I got the best news for you at all. You don't even need the founder anymore. I'm going to remove myself. You've got 5 people in place with another 12 people, but you got to,
because you didn't have any. Everybody else had the responsibilities in terms of the company.
Correct.
Maybe obviously you were bringing a strategic portion in, but when you're selling to a strategic buyer, they're more interested in their strategy than your strategy anyway, probably.
The hardest thing for an entrepreneur, and I had heard it 17,000 times, was how do you fire yourself from your own business and make it better? And fortunately for me, I had a lot of mentors. I had a lot of coaches. I had hired coaches for my partners too, so that they didn't have to hear it from me. And they worked directly with coaches. We worked with another peer group on the mechanical side. We worked with a lot of people that were giving us feedback. We created an advisory board. That advisory board was fantastic. And basically, they were giving me feedback. I was giving them feedback, and we were working all in the same direction. And by the way, I will say to you, I hate to sound like Forrest Gump with the shrimp boats, but I was Forrest Gump with the shrimp boats. When I sold my company in September of 2018, not knowing that the following year we would be faced with
Right.
COVID. And, I don't even like to think about what that would
But
have
you
done
put
to me.
yourself to capitalize on that fortune with the timing. You had a great economy. You were just poised for it.
Yep.
Had you not done all of those things, had you not had a great plan in place, a strategy, what would have happened?
To that point, I would say the greatest piece of advice I would give a small business owner, and everyone gives me the wrong answer or gives me an answer that's not complete, is to have a 5-year strategic plan, both for your business and your personal life, because they have to mesh. So if your personal life is in 5 years, I want to live in Florida, play golf every day, then it better match on the strategic side that you're going to sell your business in the next 2 years. Because in my world, everything takes 5 years. If you're going to hire somebody, they'll start showing talent, but you're not going to see the full potential with them until you have 5 years. And the mistake I think that a lot of entrepreneurs make is they expect it to happen faster than it does. I'm telling you, everything takes 5 years. And having a strategic plan for your personal life and your business life, and then having people weigh into both. Your advisory board, your partners, your executive team. Hey, listen, we're going to go from 150 to 200. That's great to say it, but unless you've got a strategy that helps you incrementally get to the other 50 million with everybody on board, because the hardest thing in the world in business is getting everybody on the same bus with only one steering wheel and only one gas pedal.
What was the key for you in doing that?
I think any successful business requires a control freak, somebody like me that looks at data, looks at what's working. So we had systems in place. So if a customer was upset with somebody in service or somebody in sales or somebody in construction, I said, listen, here's the rule. It's first day of Catholic school. Raise your hand if you've got a problem. I'll help you. But if you don't tell me we have a problem and we lose that client, I'm going to be really upset. So the people in the field knew that. The people in the office knew that. That communication was a thing. We created, Rob, this thing called basic human skills, which was how we respond to clients. I had rules around no texting clients. I had rules around how many emails will you send to somebody before you actually pick up the phone and call them. So we would have situations where I said, listen, if somebody's upset with you and you can't resolve it 2 times via email, you got to pick up the phone and call them. Now nobody speaks to each other. The biggest challenge I have right now in business is nobody wants to pick up the phone. Everyone thinks that this is picking up the phone. Everyone thinks that if I just send him 3 more emails convincing him that we're supposed to be there Tuesday, but today's Thursday, and it doesn't make a difference. I said, just talk to each other. And the hardest part in any business is getting all the stakeholders to communicate effectively. And I mean to standardize that, to say that, hey, 2 emails and you're out. You call the guy and the guy's upset with you. He doesn't want to speak to you. Well, you better raise your hand and tell somebody else so we can help you. And so I was a safety net for a lot of people in the company, and they really appreciated that. If we had a construction client that was beating up one of my construction managers, or we had a guy in the field that made a mistake. So we had a lot of great lines, but we didn't fix blame, we fixed problems. And as long as everybody understood that, I would be okay with it. What I was not okay with, and I would never be okay with, is if something was going on, if an employee was stealing, or an employee was moonlighting, or a client was really upset with us, and I did not know about that,
Right.
That was a problem. So I made that incredibly painful for the people around me. So I said, listen, bad news, you give me bad news, it's my responsibility from there. It was a big part of the business. So when the owner of the company or the founder of the company comes there and says, listen, I'm sorry, we made a mistake. Tell me what I got to do to fix it. We can get those clients back, but I can't do it once it passes a point of no return.
This episode is brought to you by Work Better Now, your trusted partner for accessing high-performing talent from Latin America. Our clients say that partnering with Work Better Now has transformed their businesses by providing the proactive, reliable, and skilled professionals they need to thrive. For more resources to help your business grow, visit workbetternow.com/eguide. And if you're ready to build your dream team, head to workbetternow.com to schedule your consultation today. As a special thank you to Great Talent, Great Business listeners, we're offering $150 off your first 3 months. Just mention Great Talent during your consult. Switching gears a little bit, you are coaching other business owners. Tell me a little bit more about when you're coaching them, what are they maybe doing wrong, and what do you tell them they need to be doing when it comes to managing and leading their talent?
Great question. I don't really coach 100%. I'm half consultant and half coach. So I get probably 10 calls a year from people that want me to work with them. Usually the person is the CEO of a business under 150 or a stakeholder that runs a business unit. So I'm doing 4 right now. I'll give you one for an example. And this is so important. I get a call from one of my buddies that knows a guy in San Francisco that owns a large air conditioning company. He says, Dan, would you be willing to work? We can't grow the service department. Would you be willing to work with our service manager? And I said, listen, I'm happy to talk to him. And if him and I have chemistry, I'm willing to do it. But it's baseball for me. It's 3 strikes and you're out. If you're not going to do the work, I have no interest in wasting my time. But if your business is, let's say, 3 million right now, and you want to get to 15 million in 3 to 5 years, I'll get you there. But you got to work. Introduced me to his service manager. The guy was and is fantastic. And he was in a toxic situation because they had never set up strategies and process. So for the first year, all we did was I taught him how to create a sales plan, how to create strategy and process, how to create a strategic plan. And now that company, And San Francisco is a hard area to work in right now.
Right.
That company is booming. His service department is booming. He used to spend 60% of his day on drama within his own company. But what was fantastic about it is it's just a great company. So he was able to use a lot of the stuff that we were working with. So while I'm coaching him, I'm really consulting because I'm really giving him tools that he didn't know he needed. So some business owners don't. Some don't look 5 years out. Some don't look and say, hey, what's my profit killers? Hey, who are the bottom rung of my field technicians? Who do I have to fire? Who do I have to hire? What do I got to do? And what I'm really happy about is how that journey has transformed that division in 2 to 3 years. So I do a lot of that. And Rob, I'm not for everybody. I tell people straight out, I'm an acquired taste. I'm going to hold you accountable the same way you're going to hold me accountable. If you're supposed to read a book and do this, don't even think about showing up not prepared. And if you're not prepared, I'll know you're not prepared. All I'm asking you to do is don't waste my time. I won't waste your time. I'm going to give you 100% of my effort. I expect 100% from you. And those kind of clients work really well with me. Now, that being said, what I just described to you is very hard right now because accountability in the workforce, I'm very involved in the operations of some buildings. And I can tell you since post-COVID, Rob, the response, whether it's the hybrid or the COVID, whatever happened with COVID, people are just not getting back to people. People are not responding to people. People are not showing up on time, they're showing up prepared. And I can't believe it. You would think with all these communication tools we have now that people would actually be more responsive. They're less responsive.
Right. If you want to communicate, we have unbelievable tools to do so now. Rather than go into why do you think that is, what do you think business owners should be doing if they're dealing with that?
There's a great book, which I found it very troubling, but I read The Anxious Generation. And to me, that was a wake-up call. I'm sort of out of it now because my kids are older and they have kids. And now I'm researching of what it would look like for my grandkids. But what showed up for me was with all these resources and all these tools and all these technology, never before in the history of the world have we been so isolated and alone and anxious and happy and mental health stuff and everything else like that. So when I thought about it, and again, this is my opinion, on my best day, Rob, I was a B+ student, but I worked harder than everybody else. And I had no problem if somebody said to me, Dan, you're not doing it right. Try this.
You take offense. You didn't get offended easily.
And I loved feedback because feedback to me was information. Right. Feedback for me was a course correction. Feedback for me was, wow. And if we have time at the end of this, I'll tell my great story about this with Vistage. But what I think is happening right now is we've tried to protect the younger generation from a lot of the stress and anxiety that we had. And you can't do that because life flows free. And what that means is that you have to deal with it. So for me, the thing that shows up for me is I enjoyed asking people what I did wrong.
Because you wanted to get better. Yeah.
I wanted the feedback. I begged for the feedback. If something wasn't working, I would look for a solution. And then my thing was, hey, listen, I'm not going to fix the blame. I'm going to fix the problem. And so I really enjoyed that. I look back at the days when I had to do a lot of public speaking. I hated it. Somebody could have said, hey, listen, I'm nervous. I don't want to do this. And they would have said yes. I could have said to Vistage, I'm not going to share my thoughts because I don't want anybody being upset with me.
Back when you were in Vistage, you were already a successful business owner. In fact, you had maybe one of the more successful businesses in the group. And there you are. You're still like, hey, I don't know everything. I want to be better. I want to make that point to everybody that it wasn't like you were struggling. You were not struggling.
Yes and no, Rob. We were really profitable. We were, at that time, a $65 million company. I was going through a divorce, which I don't recommend to anybody. The economy was horrible. Now I had to pay off my wife. My goal was, hey, by the time I turned 60, I want to be out. I've been a gunfighter since I'm 20 years old. And sooner or later, I got to put the guns down and figure out what's next. And so once I put all those things in place, I got scared, really scared. And the point was, at that time, you can hide under a rock and let the world unfold in any way possible, or you can take a lead on it, create a 5-year plan, embracing the pain, embrace it. And there was a lot of things that were really challenging for me at that time. But the goal that I woke up with every day, and Rob, you know this, and I'll just share this to anybody. I believe that if I didn't do meditation and breathing exercises every morning, I probably wouldn't have gotten through this in the right way. I'm a big fan of spiritual practice, whatever that looks like. It could be jogging, swimming, whatever you're doing. But you have to have alone time with yourself. But for me, I knew what I knew, but I didn't know what I didn't know. So I was reading books like crazy. I was going to professionals and saying, hey, what are you doing? And what I loved about Vistage was, for me, was pure feedback of people that really had my best interests. And there was things I couldn't tell my family, and there was things I couldn't tell my partners. But I had a safety net so I could do ideas with them and know that the ideas, the answers that were coming back to me were filled with honesty and love. And to me, I was saying before, I've always been decent at a lot of things in my life. I'm an average athlete, flashes of brilliance. So I've been used to, when I was a kid, doing better and pushing
Working harder,
myself to
yeah.
be better. I think the hardest thing right now that I see, and I've had some uncomfortable conversations with other companies around this topic, is I think people have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. They have to be able to sit in a spot where they're not entirely comfortable, because that's what work is. So I see some kids, I have 2 nephews, both are working their tails off. And they're working 60, 70 hours a week. And they're in the office every day. Every day. And do they love it? Do they love the fact that people are pushing them? Do I love all this stuff? But they're growing. And what that growth is going to do is, if you are in the office every day, you're bonding. You're getting a chance to meet magnificent men and women that have done what you've done before. You're meeting magnificent executives that will mold you and fold you, but they can't do it from your living room. They can't do it if you're in the office 2 days a week. And the best part, to me, what I enjoyed was the connection. So when I sold Donnelly Mechanical, I missed the connectivity of people. I missed solving ideas, solving problems. If you said to me, hey, Dan, I got a problem, we'd talk that out. If I had a problem, we would talk that out. That doesn't happen over the phone. That's a unique human experience. So I really believe the secret sauce to life, in being happy, in happiness, is connection and purpose. And if you put those two together, and you've got connection and you've got purpose, your life is going to be generally happy. I hope success follows that. But the biggest thing for me, I don't think I'd be a good CEO right now. Not that I was a great CEO to begin with, but I don't think I'd be a great CEO now, because I would want everybody in the office. And I'd want to do town hall meetings, and I'd want a strategy and process and everything else like that. And now the big pushback is, and I got in a situation 2 weeks ago where one of the company members of one of the companies, when I said, I don't believe that not going back to the office is a good idea, that caused me poking a hornet's nest. Well, we think that we should only be in the office 2 days a week and blah, 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 blah. Now, they really believe it because this is a COVID hangover. But eventually, people are going to have to come back to the office. And the great part about this, Rob, is you don't have to worry about not coming back to the office if you don't come back to the office. AI is going to take your job in 3 years anyway. So why don't you come into the office, do your best, so you have a job, so you can take care of your kids and your family. And when AI comes, you're a part of it. Because the kids that get the next curve, the kids that get the next success, those will be the kids, the hardest working kids, the kids that are in the office, the kids that are working hard. Now, I'm not saying to you I am against a hybrid workforce. I'm not saying that. What I am saying to you is that if you want to get the benefit of working with somebody and learning from them and watching them make mistakes and correct them along the way, You're doing that in live time in
Yeah,
your office.
you're saying this, of course, to a guy who owns a business that provides remote people. In our case, from Latin America, where there seems to be less of some of the issues that you talked about. But I feel like we have to, since day one, we've worked extra hard on creating the right culture, on making everybody feel like they're a part of a team, making sure everybody knows what they are working hard towards. So that's a discussion you and I can have over our next breakfast, because there isn't a way to make it work. You have to be very, very intentional about it.
Yeah, and so the other thing I would say, when I was running Donnelly Mechanical, mental health was always at the forefront. Physical health, mental health, because they're all tied in. But now, some of these things that are just out there just make no sense. And I think that if someone is struggling, we should help them. But everybody can't be struggling.
Right.
We can't have decaf coffee in the whole coffee because two people don't like caffeinated coffee. I don't know where we lost our minds around some of the rules we're making now, but if you don't like caffeinated coffee, don't drink caffeinated coffee.
Again, we're going to continue this one over our next breakfast, which I hope is soon. Dan, this has been absolutely amazing. Like I said, a crash course in entrepreneurship in just a few minutes. Dan, if anybody wants to learn more about you or wants to reach out, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
I would say you could ping me on LinkedIn, Daniel T. Donnelly, or my cell number or my email. I'm happy for you to share that. And Rob, if you have businesses that just want to talk for 20 minutes, and I'm, like I said, I probably take only 2 out of 10 clients. I'm very selective. I play hard to get, but I love, like you, I love small businesses. They're my peeps. Love it. Still have my finger in the pie, but I'm happy to help anybody that's trying to figure it out, especially if they're trying to do an acquisition or they're trying to sell their business. I think there's some great opportunities. But if there's one thing you can take away from this that I hope helps everybody is 5-year personal, 5-year business strategic plan. It's going to identify a lot of the speed bumps that you're going to have along the way and make your life
And
a
run
lot
it
happier.
by other entrepreneurs.
You can have your personal advisory board, you can have your business advisory board, but having a strategic plan without having people weigh in and saying, oh my God, okay, you're not going to be worth $100 million next year. It's just not happening. But you could be worth $100 million in 3 years if you
Right.
did this, this, and this.
Right. Dan, thank you so much.
I miss you, brother.
Too. And I'm looking forward to your next New York City visit where we can, I'm okay being either slot 1, 2, or 3 for breakfast.
Those days are done.
All right, Dan, we'll see you soon. Thanks again.
See you, Rob.
Thanks for listening. The Great Talent, Great Business podcast is brought to you by Work Better Now. Don't forget to review, subscribe, and download the worksheet for this episode at the link below. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on LinkedIn at Great Talent, Great Business, or visit greattalentpodcast.com.